Grand National winning trainer shamed after being pictured sitting on a dead horse.
The prominent trainer Gordon Elliott has been temporarily banned from racing.
It was an image that shocked the racing world.
What concerned me was not particularly Gordon Elliott being an idiot, but the fact there's a dead young horse below him.
Tonight, we investigate what happens to racehorses when their careers end.
Sadly, so many of them come to us with injuries and ailments that need time and need, without a doubt, a large amount of funding.
The fate of some of the thousands of young horses dying in the UK and Ireland every year.
Oh my God, what a gorgeous horse. Oh no, is he about to do them?
And we reveal how horses once trained by some of the biggest names in the industry have ended up here, in an abattoir where they're slaughtered.
There's been quite a lot of animals that I'm concerned have not been killed well. If that's representative of how they're being killed, then we've got a really serious problem.
I come from horse country, County Kildare in Ireland. Growing up here, I know how much both the British and Irish love their racehorses. Many of the animals trained here go on to the biggest stages in racing.
The defining stage. 300 years in the making.
This is the glamorous image racing likes to portray. It's a £5 billion industry in the UK and Ireland. Some of the most successful horses in racing are trained at the Cullentraw stables in County Meath, promoted here by now disgraced trainer Gordon Elliott. The dead horse he was pictured sitting on was a 7-year-old called Morgan. He says it died of an apparent heart attack on the gallops. Gordon Elliott was suspended from the sport and widely condemned.
Now he says his world is crumbling in front of him.
Shocking, I think, is probably the first emotion that really came to mind.
The fear is that years of hard work have been undermined.
Gordon Elliott apologised and said the welfare of each and every horse under his care is paramount and has been central to his success.
"21 years old and he's going to live his life here."
He is. He's not going anywhere else.
But campaign group Animal Aid, which is calling for an end to horse racing, says the picture raises serious questions for the whole industry.
What concerned me was not particularly Gordon Elliott being an idiot, but the fact there's a dead young horse below him. What were the reasons for that horse dying in training? How many horses dying in training?
The horse was owned by Ryanair boss Michael O'Leary's stud farm. Its partnership with Gordon Elliott has been one of the most successful in racing history, culminating in Michael O'Leary's dream of winning the Grand National.
I went into my first bookie shop to put a bet on a Grand National without my mother knowing, and now to win it is a dream come true.
One of the biggest names in jump racing, Michael O'Leary is now winding down his racing empire. His horses are looked after by a variety of trainers. Since 2015, of the 500 horses owned by his stud, 86 have died. That's more than 1 in 6. Is that a death rate that's inevitable for jump horses with tough racing careers? Dr. Hannah Donovan is a veterinary expert.
No. Where we have the veterinary care we have and the developments we have to be able to look after horses in the high standard that we have in Britain and Ireland, then no, you wouldn't expect that.
Michael O'Leary says the horses that died suffered serious or life-threatening injuries either in training or on the racecourse, so rehab was not an option. These animals were humanely euthanized on veterinary advice rather than allowing them to suffer. Many horses live long and happy lives when they leave racing. So what are the rules when a horse's racing career ends? Daniel Mills is a professor of equine behaviour.
The industry's own regulations recommend that you should make provision for all of the animals that you're responsible for.
According to the guidelines, the onus is on trainers and owners to find lifelong care for their horses.
And that duty of care extends to racehorses forced to stop racing due to injury. Euthanasia is not ruled out, but should only be used on a vet's advice to prevent a horse from suffering.
Does a career-ending injury necessarily mean that the horse should be euthanized?
No, it doesn't. It completely depends on the individual injury and situation. Some horses, if they have an injury, you can put time and often money into them to help rehabilitate them, heal whatever has gone wrong.
This is an ex-race horse who is receiving some treatment from Kate, our full-time physiotherapist.
Mary Francis runs the Moorcroft Equine Rehabilitation Centre. She's nursed injured racehorses back to health.
So he has arrived with some back pain and he's been with us a while and he's receiving just further treatment. He is in work now and he is much more comfortable than he was.
Around 7,000 horses leave British racing each year. Mary says she's inundated with requests to help injured racehorses like Lord Kennedy here.
The phone rings here every day and I get 2 or 3 requests per day to take in an ex-race horse. They're signed over to the charity and we take full responsibility for them. And that's a big commitment financially and otherwise. We're having to beg, steal and borrow funding from other areas and we do very much worry for the future.
The British racing industry gives £1.4 million a year for the aftercare of racehorses. Mary thinks there's more that could be done.
Sadly, so many of them come to us with injuries and ailments that need time and need, without a doubt, a large amount of funding. There's no question there is money available. It's not a poor industry. There is money available, but there doesn't seem to be the understanding or the desire to put the money where it is needed.
The British Horse Racing Authority says the number of racehorses at rehoming centres is a relatively small proportion of those retired from racing. It says there are many aftercare providers seeking funding. More than 300 British and Irish horses died at the racecourse in the last full year of racing. The British Horse Racing Authority says racing is getting safer. But away from the track, it's not easy to find out what happens to racehorses when their careers end. Scouring publicly available information and putting the pieces together, I've discovered that thousands of racehorses, often young, die every year. Campaign group Animal Aid has been investigating racehorse deaths for years. It thinks it's found out what happened to some of them. It set up covert cameras at an abattoir, Drury & Sons, one of the few licensed to slaughter horses in England.
We wanted to see what was actually happening there. What were the type of horses going through? What were the ages of these horses? When we looked at the footage, we were absolutely astounded at the sheer volume of young thoroughbreds.
The footage was shot on 4 days at the end of 2019 and early 2020. Many of the horses seen being slaughtered were aged between 2 and 10. Much of the footage is too distressing to show.
Sort of 2, 3, 4 years old, you know, very, very young, immature animals. They weren't mature animals.
But how long would they live normally?
A thoroughbred could live 25, even 30 years. So they've got a long life ahead of them potentially, yet it's being cut short very, 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 very early. There's something fundamentally wrong here. Some horses were beautiful, fabulous looking horses, and we were saying, well, why are these horses going for slaughter?
I show the footage to independent experts Dr. Hannah Donovan.
That horse is terrified.
And Professor Daniel Mills.
Euthanasia means a good death, and what I've seen has been quite a lot of animals that I'm concerned have not been killed well. I mean, some of these look really beautiful horses. You know, it surprises me that nothing can be done for these horses. I would have thought some of these, you know, they look like they could be rehabilitated and sold on.
The vast majority of horses being slaughtered in Britain and Ireland come from Irish owners and trainers, and the overall figure is staggering. From the start of 2019 to the end of 2020 alone, 4,000 racehorses were slaughtered in UK and Irish abattoirs.
It's not hard to construct an argument that the routine slaughter of thousands of racehorses brings shame on the racing industry. One thing is certain, it's not something racing boasts about.
While the covert cameras were recording at Drury's abattoir, this horse turned up. According to its documents, it's a racehorse called Tammy's Hill.
White flag is raised and they're off and running.
Thousands watched as he raced in the Irish Grand National in 2015. Tammy's Hill is in contention, but at the fourth from last fence, he rears up with a leg injury. We see him struggling in the background. He was put down, his death widely reported. So how come, almost 5 years later, he seems to have turned up here? The answer may lie in the international horse meat industry. Although not popular in the UK, there is a sizable export market in Europe. To make sure humans don't eat horse meat contaminated with veterinary drugs like the anti-inflammatory bute, each horse must have a microchip and matching passport.
Passports for horses are really important because medication they've had should be listed in their passport. If any horse has ever had bute, they can't go into the human food chain. Residues can cause problems in humans later down the line, causing an issue with humans' blood.
But there have been criminal attempts to sell horse meat unfit for human consumption using bogus documents. The passport and microchip of every horse entering an abattoir should be checked on site by a vet. Seen here, wearing green, working for the Food Standards Agency, or FSA, to ensure correct identification.
Ingrid, good morning.
Ingrid Craggle is an expert in food fraud.
So what do the fraudsters do to trick the system?
If you have a horse that is unfit for consumption, but you want to sell it anyway to make as much money as you can, you need to get around the rules. And for doing that, there is quite a simple way to do it, is you need to falsify the passport. Fraudulently introducing this horse into the food chain can bring in a considerable amount of money.
So does this explain why a horse going by the name of Tammy's Hill has turned up? Tammy's Hill did die at the Irish Grand National. His owners told us they followed all the correct procedures and don't know what happened next. But Tammy's Hill's microchip has turned up in the neck of this horse, an imposter. Was it to cover up that the horse had been given bute? The FSA vet discovered the horse had two microchips, one belonging to Tammy's Hill and one to another horse. It was stopped from being sold for food. But this wasn't the only time a horse turned up at Drury's with bogus paperwork.
We've obtained these confidential documents, and in here there's evidence that over 20 days there were at least 40 attempts to get horse meat into the human food chain with dubious documentation.
These attempts were all spotted by the FSA vet. The abattoir says horses that are not compliant with current regulations are rejected and do not enter the human food chain. But it's critical of the passport system and says it does not support the production of safe meat. The FSA says, together with the government, it's working with the industry to review the equine passport system. When a horse is slaughtered, there are strict rules designed to limit its suffering. Back with Drury and Sons, covertly recorded footage raises other issues. Lame or injured horses shouldn't be transported to slaughter if it's likely to cause unnecessary suffering. Drury's should know this. They were fined thousands of pounds after transporting a lame horse from Northern Ireland for slaughter in 2018. The covert footage filmed a year later reveals a severely lame horse at a farm owned by Drury's.
That horse was non-weight bearing, so could not put the left hind leg down at all, which indicates or suggests a severe injury or pain. This horse is suffering, and this horse either needs immediate pain relief intravenously or to consider euthanasia, definitely on the yard at the site.
The footage appears to show the horse remained in that condition for at least a week. And it seems the welfare issues don't stop there. The scenes are so upsetting, we can't show most of them.
So we've got two horses that have come in together into the room, which seems quite unusual. The regulations are that an animal should not be slaughtered in sight of another. A gunshot going off is going to be startling, seeing another horse suddenly drop.
Oh no, is he about to do them?
These are all going to be very distressing for a horse in a situation. Horses do respond very much to the behaviour of other horses around them.
We see this clear breach of the rules 26 times. But even more concerning, the cameras reveal how the kill is sometimes far from instant.
When you slaughter a horse, what you're looking to do is get the bullet so that it destroys the brain stem, which is where the consciousness is, and it stops the heart and the breathing as well. You've got to get the angle right in order to hit that bit of the brain. And if the easiest way to do it is to be right up close, and then you get the angle quite right.
Here, the slaughterman shoots the horses from across the room. While the covert cameras were filming, 91 horses were shot from a distance. On this occasion, it doesn't look like the shot has been accurate.
It doesn't look like the horse is even stunned. I mean, it's certainly the bullet has not been effective, and you can see it's turning its head. It seems to have got some control actually over its head and neck. The first few seconds, it looks like that horse is still conscious. Taking a shot from a distance at a horse, and to me, that's completely out of order. If you're going to euthanize a horse, you've got to get the bullet in the right place, and shooting a horse from afar, as if you're on safari, is not the way to do it. If that's representative of how they're being killed, then we've got a really serious problem.
The abattoir says it takes great care to maintain high welfare conditions and does not accept any form of animal abuse. It says where issues arise, it takes swift action to review and rectify them. All horses are humanely destroyed under the control of FSA vets who are present on the slaughter line at all times. So should the FSA be intervening?
I think also what's perhaps shocking there is it looks like there's an official veterinary surgeon in place as well. And they have a responsibility as well to ensure that the law is upheld.
The Food Standards Agency says it works closely with slaughterhouses to ensure animal welfare is maintained at all stages of food production. The government is currently looking at what can be done to improve enforcement and control at slaughterhouses. Across a number had been under the recent care of some of the most respected names in the sport. This video showcases Cheltenham champion hurdle-winning trainer Gavin Cromwell's facilities. He's on the board of the Irish Racehorse Trainers Association. And this is Beneficial Quest. He'd been trained by Mr. Cromwell. Here he is being led to the kill room. We asked Mr. Cromwell if he was still the horse's trainer at the time and knew about its slaughter. He told us he didn't want to answer our questions. Remember Gordon Elliott, the prize-winning trainer suspended for sitting on a dead horse? He's trained more than 1,300 horses. He says the animals in his possession are treated appropriately. He operates at all times under the advice of veterinary surgeons and that he's rehomed a substantial number of horses. Well, you're about to see what happened to 3 horses that had recently been trained at his yard. High Expectations won £43,000 in prize money while racing.
High Expectations for Gordon Elliott winning this valuable prize.
Vita de Rock was even more successful.
Vita de Rock,
earning his owners more than £170,000 at courses like Cheltenham and Ascot. And this is Kiss Me Kate, who gamely struggled in the few races she was entered in. But it was when these horses developed career-ending injuries that things started to go badly wrong for them. Gordon Elliott says, in line with the owner's wishes, he gave Vita de Rock to another rider, and High Expectations and Kiss Me Kate to a horse dealer with an instruction to either rehome or, if not possible, humanely euthanize them in line with the regulations. But we've discovered all 3 would eventually end up on a lorry bound for England. Despite being injured, including one with lameness, the horses were taken by ferry across the Irish Sea and driven to southwest England. There were 13 more horses from elsewhere also in the lorry.
If you have a lame horse or a lame animal at all, they shouldn't be transported. The pain and discomfort that they are feeling at the time will definitely be exacerbated by travelling them, especially long journeys like that.
The horses were then unloaded and put in a barn on Drury and Sons farm.
They're kept somewhere which is completely alien to them. This is going to be a very stressful situation.
A week later, they were back on the lorry, being driven the final journey to Drury's abattoir, where they were held overnight before being led into the kill room. This is Vita de Rock.
What a gorgeous horse. Oh my God, what a gorgeous horse.
And this is Kiss Me Kate.
Oh, what a lovely, trusting horse. Look at that, coming away from the herd.
How does she look to you?
Oh, she's calling now. Right, see the ears there and trying to get back out. Worry.
And this is not a one-off. More horses from Gordon Elliott's yard were given to the same dealer on other occasions and ended up slaughtered.
No, that is not a humane process. Being transported 350 miles, potentially carrying an injury. The bottom line is, horses, if they are to be euthanized, could and should be euthanized at home. This is unnecessary suffering.
Gordon Elliott, whose suspension as a trainer is due to end in September, told us, "High expectations, had arthritic knees and a tendon injury that was career-ending and made him unsafe for riding. Kismi Kaif had recurring lameness that made her unsuitable for rehoming or riding." He says neither he nor the owners received any money and no animals were sent by him to an abattoir. The first time he learned of their fate was when Panorama contacted him. He says the dealer he gave them to was a long-standing and well-recognised individual in the racing industry.
The dealer told us that every horse he is given is treated with the utmost care and compassion, but not every horse is suitable for a life outside of racing. Those horses that have suffered injuries but are fit to travel are sent to be humanely euthanized. All passports are checked. Mr. Elliott told us that in the case of these 3 particular horses, none had passports marked unfit for human consumption.
So what about the owners of the horses? Vita de Rock's owners said they were shocked and furious when we told them what happened. They'd taken appropriate steps to ensure Vita would be rehomed with a caring new keeper. High Expectations owner didn't respond. And the struggling Kismi Kaif? Well, she belonged to one of the biggest names in Irish racing, Karen Walsh. She's on the board of Horse Racing Ireland and its Horse Welfare Committee, and is seen here promoting the sport.
Gosh, it's something that you always dream of when you have horses, and for groups of people, friends, relatives, whatever, to group together to have a horse and get excited and have something to watch is very important, I think.
Karen Walsh says she understood that on the basis of veterinary advice, the horse was to be euthanised in Ireland due to persistent lameness and her unsuitable temperament. She had no idea the horse was slaughtered at an abattoir in England. Horse Racing Ireland says it places great importance on the welfare of the horses in the industry and directly supports the Irish Horse Welfare Trust, which seeks to rehome and retrain thoroughbreds no longer active in racing. It did not respond to Panorama's questions regarding the number of racehorses being slaughtered. The British Horse Racing Authority says it has demonstrated a clear commitment to improving already high standards of care for racehorses before, during and after racing, and that it would consider carefully any issues raised in the programme.
I can understand why people are attracted to racing, because I was attracted to it myself. But because of the poor welfare record, the number of horses dying and being killed in slaughterhouses, I can no longer support that. And I think a lot of the public will feel the same way.
Beneath the glamour of horse racing, there lies a dark side. Isn't it time those who regulate the sport of kings ensure all horses are treated with dignity and care at the end of their racing careers?
The incredible true story of a Scottish mercenary tasked with taking down the world's biggest drug lord, killing Escobar, starting shortly on BBC Two. Here on One, how a nation rose to Olympic glory. Gold Rush is next.